So, welcome to the podcast, Vanessa Labort. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
It's a pleasure. So, this podcast is called Group Fitness Real Talk, and I'm excited for you to be one of the first guests because one thing I know about you from years of knowing you is that you always talk real.
Yeah, I do. I find it a lot easier that way, a lot easier to navigate my relationships. And yeah, I think I'm
100%.
known for that.
I would say that that's true. So some people that are listening to this podcast are going to know you from your Les Mills experience. Other people are going to be meeting you for the first time. So I guess one of the first things I want to talk about is the fact that people listening to this are going to hear an Australian accent, but they might be surprised to know that you're not actually an Australian. Can you tell me a little bit about your background?
Yeah, this is probably the question that I've been asked most in my life. So yes, I was
Where are you
born in
really
the
from?
Netherlands.
We'll get to
Where are you from?
that.
Which we'll get back to that later because
Yeah.
it's got a whole new meaning now. So yeah, I was born in the Netherlands in a very small city called Arnhem, and I lived there until I was 9. And my parents decided then to up and move, and they quite liked the look of Australia and a very, very small country town a couple of hours south of Sydney. So
What was the town called?
that's how we ended up in Australia.
What town were you in Australia?
It was a little place called Bundanoon, which is in the Southern Highlands. And
Undernoon, got it.
oh yeah, I mean, I don't think you could get sort of any more quintessentially rural Australia as that. So that was a very interesting shift. Yeah.
Right. So you went from small town Netherlands or sort of mid-city Netherlands to small town Australia.
Oh, it was country. It was as country as it could get in Australia. And yeah, I mean, the city that I was from in the Netherlands wasn't overly huge, but it's the
The
Netherlands. So
Netherlands is still a little bit more
nothing's
cosmopolitan
that
than
small.
Undernoon. No. So how old were you when that happened?
I was 9. I was 9, and I'm actually the youngest of 5. The very, very, very baby of 5. So I have 3 older sisters and I have an older brother. Now, the reason for going to Australia was actually that my brother married an Australian girl. And so he moved out first, and my parents loved it when we went to visit. But it meant that my 3 sisters, who were much older than me and had their own families, never moved to Australia. So all of a sudden I had 3 sisters and sort of, nephews and a niece left in Holland, in Amsterdam, and then I was in Australia with my brother and his grown-up family. So it was a definite
Your
shift.
accent is individual amongst your immediate family then?
Nobody else has got this accent except probably my nieces and my nephews who were raised in Australia.
Right.
But yeah, not even my brother, and definitely not my parents sound like this. And obviously my sisters have that sort of Euro accent, Euro English accent.
And so you were speaking Dutch when you moved to Australia?
Yeah, I didn't speak a word of English. I have this very vivid recollection actually of, and it was 1985. I mean, there was no sort of mollycoddling of anything.
No Duolingo for you to do on the plane on the way over.
Duolingo or, let's see how this is going to impact her emotionally. It was very much, here's your school bag. We've booked you into school. Off you go. Good luck.
So the Netherlands and Australia are pretty different countries culturally and weather-wise and location. How did that make you feel when you got taken from one to the other?
Oh, I mean, we'd been on holiday there before, and I remember loving it. As I said, the heat and the summer and, the outdoors, and that was and as I said, we moved to very rural Australia. So that was a completely different ball game for me, and a really exciting one, as I think, for any 9-year-old kid, lots of new experiences. I had my family, and it was exciting. I think, culturally, the language was a definite barrier. And then, of course, you realize pretty quickly, because kids are brutal, that, you don't quite look like everybody else either. And that was, definitely something that became apparent really, really quickly.
So we're going to circle back to that a little bit later on. But I think getting back to the fitness, so you were at school in Australia. Tell me how you found fitness and how that became sort of the career of your future.
Oh, I love this. I love this part of my life. I was absolutely dreadful at sport.
Me too.
Anything that involved a ball and a bat and hand-eye coordination was just a disaster. I would be the girl, you know, making daisy chains on the hill when I was supposed to be fielding in some sort of sport, you know, catching the ball at, I don't even know what I was supposed to be doing. I would be the one who would hide behind the bushes, you know, when they were doing cross country, anything, and sort of splash water on my face and pretend that I'd made it. You know, I was always last to be picked onto PE teams, and of course, growing up in Australia, as I'm sure that, you know, it was very similar to you. You know, sport was a religion. You know, everybody played something after school, and everybody was pretty good at something at sport. And oh wow, I really, really wasn't. I didn't enjoy it. I just had nothing. So, I'm miraculous. My sister-in-law, it was the 80s. And my sister-in-law was really into her home workout videos. I remember she did
funny that, like full circle.
Tybo for a long time. And she had some incredible Jane Fonda videos, which I sort of clocked one afternoon at her house.
Did you really find your way into fitness through Billy Blanks and Tybo videos? Oh my God.
Yeah.
He had that. Oh, wait.
It just cut out.
We've lost it again.
That's okay. It's back, I think.
Now it's coming back. So you really found your way into fitness through Billy Blanks and Tybo videos. That's crazy, because me too. He had that like red kind of two-piece that would look good now.
Yes, as a retro item.
As a retro thing, yeah.
But it was the Jane Fonda exercise videos and Denise Austin, I think it was. She was into, that I remember borrowing, and that was it. And I think it was the combination of music to movement. I've always been super, super passionate and had very much a musical type of way of learning things. And I always really resonated with, you know, music and the beat and lyrics. And so I think finding a way to move, which to me was never exercise. It was always more like just dancing and having a great time. And I very quickly became obsessed. So that was well and truly before you're allowed to go to the gym in Australia. The average, the official age to be able to go to the gym is 14 and 9 months. And so I remember waiting.
14 and 9 months, that's weird. 14
and 9, it's so random. But I remember waiting for 14 and 9 months, and I started going to the gym as soon as they allowed it. And, you know, front row at the aerobics class with my scrunched up socks and my, you know, thong leotard over the top of my tights. And I absolutely loved it. And I just remember thinking, I could do this and I love it. And, you know, I was really lucky that I had some incredible role models growing up at the little country gym that I was at, and people that I still look up to now. And fast forward a couple of years later, you know, obviously got your driver's license, and I was going to the gym by myself. I started weightlifting, really enjoyed that as well. But then a company called Les Mills brought Body Pump, or Pump as it was called back in 1995 to Australia. And I was one of the people in my gym who was asked to go to that training. And that sort of revolutionized, you know, things for me.
Group fitness in general.
Group fitness, definitely group fitness in Australia, but absolutely things for me. I mean, not only could I now just learn the choreography, it was super cutting edge, it was super different, and, you know, people loved it, and, you know, I was really good at it.
So you are teaching Body Pump and you're feeling really confident on the stage, and then you get the call up to be on the Les Mills Australia Pacific training team, which is really kind of the height of achievement and what a lot of instructors strive to achieve in their instructor career. Can you talk me through how you got picked and how you got selected for the team?
Yeah, so I was living back in Australia at that time, and I then started teaching body step as well as body attack. I believe I might have done my body balance training at some point as well. And I was loving teaching. I was really, really enjoying it. I was living in Sydney, and I was very fortunate that I got to teach at clubs where a lot of the Les Mills Australia or Les Mills Asia Pacific team was either coordinating or teaching at the time. And I do remember a really great friend of mine, Chris Hutton, who was watching my classes, or my body step class actually, at the back of a class one time, and he sort of said to me, he said, I really think that you should try to be on the team. But as you said, back then it was very much the holy grail, and I already thought I was overshooting the mark. And I thought, oh, okay, well that would be fun. And so the application came around and I applied. I got invited to a boot camp. I don't know how they do it these days, but I got invited to a boot camp where you not only had to teach, but you also had to present a section for training.
Yep.
For
initial
being able to train other
training
instructors.
section.
That's right. Yeah. And I failed so miserably that it lots of tears and lots of because I just literally didn't have a clue what I was supposed to be doing.
You'd never done any educational presentation at that point?
No. I just taught classes and thought, that here's me. And so went away and did all the work, and I realized that that's actually something that I did want to do, and it was definitely the next step for me in my career. I was very passionate about teaching classes, and I thought I'd love to be able to present at events. I'd love to be able to train other people. And so I was actually invited back to another boot camp.
So you didn't get through in the first boot camp?
I did not get through.
Okay, I didn't know that about you.
No, I certainly didn't. And looking back, there was no surprises there. And, they always say that, you look back and you realize why. And I'm ever so grateful, because it allowed me just to get my priorities straight and figure out whether that's what I really wanted to do. And also realize that you can't just wing everything in life.
A valuable lesson learned.
Yes. And so I attended the second boot camp and got through, and I was chosen as a presenter for Body Step at first. I remember my trainer manager at the time was quite keen on just developing you in one program and really sort of honing in on that. And even after all of those years, Body Step was always my favorite. It was always the program that I felt so confident in and so happy doing. And so then followed Body Attack. And then obviously moving back to the UK in 2007, when I joined the UK trainer team, I also became a trainer for Body Pump.
Right. And that's when you and I met. So Vanessa and I met in the Les Mills International office right before Body Attack 58 filming, because you were doing the options and I was presenting in that DVD. I remember meeting you in the office and being like fast friends immediately. And then I was moving to the UK right when you were moving back, and we both arrived at the same time and started teaching at the same gym, and we've sort of been friends ever since. So I want to move now to something that we've talked about a lot between the two of us over the years, and that is at the top of the fitness profession where you were sitting, where you were training and presenting and really delivering top-class fitness experiences to customers, to other trainers, and being looked up to by a lot of trainers. Did you feel any pressure kind of to look a certain way?
Oh, absolutely. I don't even have to think about that. And I think that you'd be hard pressed finding anybody, male, female, regardless of age, who doesn't in the industry. It's still very much an industry where the way you look is your business card. I've heard that so many times.
Oh, wow. I haven't heard that for a while, but I remember, wow, that's taken me back. I feel like that's not the kind of thing people say anymore. But now hearing you say that, I just remember hearing it hundreds of times in my early career, hundreds.
Right. Yeah. And, it was always, even though... and
always said as a negative for me as well. Like I never felt like that was something being positively said. It was a warning.
It was a warning. It was very much a yardstick that people held you by. And I definitely think that if it wasn't openly said, it was always an undercurrent. And this is through having so many discussions and, just experiences, not just mine, but also other people's. And when I say people, I really, really want to stress that it's not just women, it's also men.
I can attest to that.
Absolutely. And I think, does it get worse at the top of your profession? Maybe. But I think maybe, a lot of that is the pressure that you put on yourself because of the undercurrents. I just remember my life very much going in sort of quarters, because I know that that's how we
Yeah.
presented the material. And it was sort of, X amount of time was preparing for the workshop. And when I say preparing, I mean looking a certain way. So
Right.
restricting food.
So not the choreography and the music.
Oh no, no. That was not a problem. But restricting food, upping even more exercise than the 5 classes you were teaching that day. Sorry. Really thinking about what you ate, because you always heard the words, ripped and in shape, and oh, such and such looks great, or such and such is out of shape, or such and such is lean, or such and such is shredded. And so then there'd be the prep time, and then I remember, there'd literally be about a week's space where you could kind of go nuts and eat whatever you wanted before it all began again. There'd be the slight tapering off of, well, it's almost upon us again. And
right. So it's fair to say from what you're saying that this is not something that came easily to you. This is something that you struggled with.
Absolutely. It was a constant struggle. It was a constant struggle between my ears, and also, the way that my body likes to look naturally.
Right.
Not just with lots of wine and lots of, junk food, but just genetically, the shape that I am and the way that, my body is built naturally. Absolutely. It was a big challenge.
Right. So you felt, so without putting words in your mouth, you felt like you were kind of fighting the way that you were being led to look was different to the way that your body kind of naturally looked when you were.
Interestingly enough, and I would love to expand on this a little further, but this is something that I've only very recently realized. All I knew at the time was that it was a constant fight. It was a
Right.
constant battle. And why on earth, does my body not want to do that whilst looking at somebody who looked completely different to me?
Yeah.
Um,
So you're at the top of the profession, and
mm,
you're caning it when it comes to actually what you're delivering in the educations and all that. You're struggling with kind of the body image part, but then you get the call up to do Les Mills DVDs, which I think is kind of the pinnacle of what a lot of instructors listening to this, those that aren't Les Mills instructors, it's essentially being asked to be the figurehead of the format that you teach for a whole quarter. And it comes with a lot of fanfare, a trip across the world to New Zealand, and a really kind of intensive boot camp to become a better instructor. So there's so many amazing things about it. Tell me about that experience for you when you got the call up.
Oh, it was great. I do remember, going through the process of, really, really, really wanting that. I mean, at that time, as you said, it was the pinnacle. It was a very much deserved opportunity that you were given. Yeah, it was amazing. It was such a great experience. And as you said, I was very fortunate enough to be asked to do 5 DVDs.
You did 5.
Yeah, 5 DVDs in
Because if
my
you get asked back, that means you did a good job.
not one and done.
Yeah.
And yeah, I loved them. I loved my experience. I learned so very, very much about myself, about, coaching, about the difference of coaching, for educational purposes rather than what's
Yeah.
going on a Wednesday night in your local club and
Yeah.
in your local, with the members that know you. Coaching for maximum impact rather than just stuff that sounds really great. And they really were. And even though, I guess looking back, did I think I was at the pinnacle? Not really, not then. Looking back, I do. But back then it was just an awesome opportunity. And I remember the first DVD I was asked to present was in 2009, and then obviously, the other 4 followed, and it was a great experience. And I felt that, my skills and my dedication to becoming a great instructor and a great coach had been recognized, and it was wonderful to be able to add that to my
100%.
accolades.
So I've worked for a few different fitness companies now, and I will say that the process of selecting someone to be on a Les Mills was a DVD at the time. I guess it would be called a video presentation now, but selecting someone to be on a video presentation at that time, sort of in the early 2000s, was you had to work really.
It's just on red.
Okay, now working now.
Still on red, it's on yellow.
And green.
Oh, on yellow. It's a bit funny. Keeps switching from, there you go. Go for it.
Yeah?
Yep.
So annoying. Okay. So I've worked for a few fitness
Yeah.
companies. Yep, cool. Okay, starting now. So I've worked for a few fitness companies now, and I will say that at that period of time, in the sort of mid to late 2000s, getting selected for a Les Mills DVD, I guess it was a DVD at the time. Now they're probably called videos, I guess. It really was selected kind of from an international squad of people that were all working in it full time, massively passionate, and kind of getting called up. It was really to represent your country at that time, right? Because you had to be kind of selected through your international trainer team and then sent down as a representative of your country to New Zealand, where you'd then do kind of an 8-day intensive boot camp to be the absolute best instructor of that format that you could ever be. And I can't think of an experience that I've had where you really hone in on being excellent at one specific thing for such a period of time and learn so much in such a condensed period about the thing that you're already pretty skilled at because you've been selected in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's a process that, it was all the emotions, in those 8 days. And, they tell you that at the start, that you will go through all of the emotions. You'll think you'll come in, you'll think you know it all, you think this is easy, you'll do it, you'll start to fall, that you'll completely sort of break down what you thought it should look and sound like. And then, the process will build you back up again. And it's perfectly timed so that at the end of that process, you are your absolute very, very best on filming day. 100%. And as you said, the process is just such a great process for them to be able to choose the people that are going to represent, their global market so well.
So there was one New Zealand experience, which was, say, a little bit more difficult than the rest of them. I think it might have been the fourth one, right? Which body step was this?
Oh, that was Body Step 100. And yes,
tell me a little bit about Body Step 100, because I think it relates a little bit to some of the stuff that we've spoken about already.
It definitely relates a lot to what we've spoken about. Body Step 100 was a very, very, very challenging time frame for me. It was a January filming. So we'd just come off the back of sort of winter here. And
winter, Christmas, the cold.
Christmas, cold, and a lot of it was me thinking this is my fourth DVD. Clearly they kind of like what comes out of my mouth and the way that I move. Mm-hmm. And so I turned up, and obviously they have a very set plan for the time frame that you're there. And being Body Step 100, I remember it being quite a big team. Mm-hmm. So, it was planned down to, very much the hours of the day. And, you have your meeting you start off with, and then day one and all of the classes that you teach together. And I just remember on day 2 being pulled aside, and nobody had said anything, and nothing had been said prior to this, prior to me going out to New Zealand. And then on day 2, I was actually pulled aside by the program coach, who's sort of someone that, coaches everybody through mm-hmm. the week, I guess. And I was pulled aside, and I just remember being very bluntly told that, Vanessa, you are out of shape, you are fat. Wow. And for this reason, we are going to take off one of the tracks that you've been allocated to present and give you that to another presenter because you're not athletic enough. And we'll also position you on the stage to kind of hide you. And then there was obviously the question of wardrobe, and we'll make sure that we put you in something that, you feel comfortable in. And I think the you feel comfortable came across when I was uncontrollably crying in the corner and, absolutely mortified. Now, I had heard of this happening before to another trainer, and this girl had actually been sent home back to her country.
For not looking the right way.
For not looking the right way. And she'd been sent home and told that she was not going to be presenting on that particular DVD. And so my instant gut reaction was, horribly embarrassed, a little confused. And so I remember through tears and sort of sobbing, saying, do I go home now? And that person sort of looked at me with shock, and they said, well, no, oh my God, no, absolutely not. We want you here because your coaching is so amazing. And I just remember at that particular moment was when the penny really dropped for me, with the fact that I was fighting very much a losing battle between didn't matter how talented you were. It didn't matter what you brought, skills wise. It really, really was all about the way that you looked, which I think in that moment, glass shattered in my ears and bells started ringing in my head. Looking back, I would have handled the situation very differently.
Tell me about that. What would you have done different? Like, if you had that time again, what would you have done?
Looking back, I would have smiled, thanked that person for their time, gone back to the hotel, packed my bags and got back on a plane. But having that time again is always different to when you're in the moment. And I think when I was in the moment, I was mortified. And I remember speaking to some people who, sort of said, don't be ridiculous. You're so great. And then having to go through a whole week.
Oh, right. Because it's an 8-day process, right? So you've got 6 more days of being on stage every day.
And knowing that this is what they think, and knowing that, you're going to be put in a garbage bag because, quite frankly, that's what you are and that's what you look like. I will be honest, I did the least amount of prep that I'd ever done. I did absolutely no scripting. I pretty much got up on that stage and delivered what I delivered, what came to my head, because my heart was just no longer in it. My heart was no longer in it because I think, as I said, at that moment, I just realised that it didn't matter. 4 DVDs in, vast experience now as a presenter, an international presenter and an international trainer, and it made no difference whatsoever. Right. Of course, I didn't learn my lesson there, but that was that experience.
So that was it, but that wasn't your last
No,
DVD.
It wasn't my last experience. My last experience was really interesting. I was asked back, which, at first I laughed so hard and, all sorts of expletives came out of my mouth and, hell no, there's no way I'm doing this.
Yeah.
And then I do remember my trainer manager at the time saying, you were asked because you are one of the best in the world.
Yeah.
And I would like you to go and, basically show them and prove what you have. Mm-hmm. Again, I would have done this so differently had it been.
Because I was friends with you at the time and I remember this, and I remember 2 things about that. One is that you trained extremely hard and got yourself into a physical condition that you thought would be more appropriate for what they wanted.
Yeah, unfortunately, and this is why I said I would have done things very differently. The conditions for me presenting at that final DVD was that I sent in update pictures of my body.
Progress pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I do remember that was, ironically, it was around the time that I found CrossFit.
Right.
Or, in functional training. And so my body changed rapidly, very dramatically.
Right, because you've been doing the same thing over and over for 10 years, and then you changed the training stimulus, which created a novel response.
And I do remember I found, this CrossFit, this functional training, there were no mirrors in the gyms. Mm-hmm. It was all about what you could do. There were people of all sizes there. And I remember it was about 6 weeks before the filming was due. And I remember saying to my manager at the time and the people in New Zealand, I'm not doing this. I'm not coming.
Right.
Basically not interested in.
Okay. I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing it. I'm not a puppet. I'm not doing it. And somehow they took me around to doing it. Again, had I had the opportunity to do it again, I would, I would have walked out on the first one and not been there anymore. Which I think is a really interesting point because of the way that this whole industry can wrap you up in its claws, where you
Yeah.
almost start to believe that kind of behavior, those type of requests is actually very, very normal. Because, well, if you want to be a fitness trainer or if you want to be a group exercise instructor, then you have to look a certain way. And so people can demand that off you. When in the cold light of day, looking at it with a completely different pair of eyes, are you kidding?
Yeah.
Are you kidding?
Because I've been in that environment. Sorry, you go.
I've always been very, very, very keen and stuck to my guns about two things. And that is that if you can perform the exercises well and have the fitness in order to, demonstrate the exercises. And in the case of those particular classes, you did the class with the participants. So do you have the fitness, the stamina and the strength in order to perform the moves in the way that they're intended? If the answer is yes, and if you can coach those moves to an ability where people can follow them safely, effectively, and have a half good time, for me, that is job done. That is the requirement. If I wanted to be a model, that I would have chosen a completely different path. And I think that that's the bit where it got very, very blurred for me. And I did sort of lose a lot of faith in the industry, where I just thought, again, getting older also puts a different perspective on things, but where I thought, well, hang on, where are we going to draw the line between instructors that are, kicking butt and have great classes and great followers within their classes, are great coaches, can actually move, like a champion, but might not be a cookie cutter, UK size 6 to 8.
Yeah, because what's the ultimate end goal? Is it to get the most people moving and the most people fit, or is it to encourage people that look a certain way to get into the fitness industry? And that obviously is something that I think is a big problem that we need to resolve if we're going to resolve a lot of the problems that we have with obesity and with lack of movement and with sedentary lifestyle.
That's exactly right. And, I also understand that, certain companies need people to look a certain way. So, the sponsors' clothes can hang off them in a certain way. However, as you said, what is our end game here? What are we looking at long term? I do believe that it's changing a lot. And I think that, as I said, I got into CrossFit and functional fitness. And I do believe that that's put a bit of a spin on the way that things are for a lot of people working out now. Lots and lots of, gyms are moving into no mirrors. It's all about what you do. It's all about, self-care, just get up and move. And, there's lots and lots of different ways for people to do that now. So I do believe that that's changing.
Yeah, agree. So you did the final Les Mills DVD, and then I know you also did some work with me at Beachbody, and obviously we're working together at Shift now, but we've kind of transitioned into something that I also wanted to talk about, which is kind of looking forward to the future of our industry and some of the stuff that we've talked about. And I don't think that it's possible to speak about the future of our industry without recognizing kind of two of the massive things that have gone on. One of them is COVID and the fact that everything's sort of shut down and things have moved online. And the second is the events of sort of May and June of this year, which is the death of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter protests and all of the kind of social awakening that's come alongside that. Now, given your sort of lived experience and what you've been through, I was wondering if you could just take us through a little bit how that impacted you and your experience of sort of the last couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, I'll quickly touch on COVID first. As you said, I my fitness experience at the moment is limited to the great work that we do at Shift together. I don't sort of actively teach, that many classes or that many different programs or anything. And so watching the fitness industry literally crumble in the wake of COVID has been devastating. And it's really interesting to see what people want and need from the industry now, not just instructors. It's been really interesting sort of watching on social media what instructors are looking for from the industry, but also obviously people who, you know, whose whole exercise regime and routine and what they love and what they're used to has changed. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think just looking at that from an outsider's, I think there's some really interesting conversations to be had about that. And then obviously there is the Black Lives Matter movement, which, yeah, I mean, it's impacted me hugely. I didn't realize how much it had impacted me until, you know, it was definitely a couple of weeks in after George Floyd's passing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, speaking to a lot of other Black people, there was a lot of realizations and a lot of emotions that were coming out, and it was literally the full spectrum of emotions within the space of a day, you know, within the space of a week, within the space of events changing, within the space of the media, you know, throwing different perspectives on things or highlighting different things. I think as a Black woman who has quite a diverse upbringing and you know, quite a diverse, you know, where I've lived and where I've grown up, there was a lot of things that I realized for the very, very first time. And I know that we've had chats personally about this as well. And something that I really want to bring up again was just how much I lent into making myself as palatable as possible in order to not draw attention to myself being Black, not draw attention to myself, you know, by ever wanting, you know, anybody to think I was using the race card. You know, one of the things that it did lead me to think about was the fact that, you know, the way that I look and the way that my body looks and the way that it has looked in the fitness industry, you know, I was always accepted when I looked as thin as possible, even though that was not the way my body is naturally. And it's ironic how, you know, I went along with that for such a long time, and almost conformed to that as well.
It's funny because I look back at it from my obviously white man perspective, but as an outsider, you and I have laughed at people. You and I have shared laughs at you being called a diva or an angry Black woman. And
Absolutely.
I look back at that and now I feel like I feel a bit guilty for my part in that, although I know that you and I were friends and we were always laughing together. But just the fact that it was kind of a shared thing that we could laugh at, just because it was so obvious that if you made a request for anything, when we were on the same team, if you stood up for yourself, you were immediately a diva in the way that someone else would not have been called that.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
you
can
know,
think
it's
of
always
so many
interesting that,
examples.
you know, I was a diva, I was difficult, I was, you know, trouble, whereas somebody else would have just been ballsy or headstrong or determined or, you know, whatever. Just to, you know, to touch on that again, and this is exactly what I mean. And you know, it's, it was the way that it was so blatant. It was so blatant. Or even the microaggressions, like, oh my God, you know, I didn't realize they had Black people in Australia.
Oh God.
Okay, we do get on planes. You know, that's a thing, right? We actually get on aircrafts now. Or, wow, you're not really black, you know, not you.
Yeah.
You're not really black. And I love the fact that we've always been able to laugh about that, Will, because it has allowed me to quantify and qualify, my pain or my emotion at that particular moment, and then laugh about it.
Yeah.
What the difference is when I've second guessed myself, or I've let a microaggression or a full out racist, you know, comment go because, well, there's nothing I can do about it. I don't want them to ever think I'm using the race card. Was it really racist? Or, you know, and I think having the awareness since George Floyd's passing and Black Lives Matter movement really taking of massive big front seat. I am now confident to say, no, that was not racist. That's because I was being a little madam.
Right.
Or actually, no, that was racist. And I'm going to call you on it. And I'm going to ask you why you thought that was okay.
So you've kind of done an audit of some of you've spoken to me actually about this sort of in personal conversations where you've gone back through various situations that have happened over the years and done that audit of, this is when I think it was this, and this is when I think it was racism.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, I am 44 years old. That's a lot of files to go back over and think about, whoa, that was a proper racist attack, you know, and actually navigating completely new territories to how to deal with that moving forward, and being confident enough and being strong enough and feeling supported enough with the people around me to be able to say, hey, not really cool with that. Can you explain what you meant? Or can you, give me a bit more of an idea as to why you thought it was okay to say that? Whereas before, there was no way that would have happened.
So I have a question for you, which I think will be sort of relevant to some of the people listening. If you're a white person and you have black friends and you think that sort of some of the interactions that you may have had with them over the years, in the hindsight of the blind hindsight of bright hindsight that we have now, what should you do? Like, what's the best approach? Speaking as someone who's obviously been going through those emotions, like, what do you suggest that a white person does if they suddenly think, oh, I was a bit of a crap person back then?
I would love to give you the answer to that. The unfortunate thing about that is that one size doesn't fit all.
Right.
And what I've noticed from my experience over the last couple of months is that black people are dealing with this very much at their own pace.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much dealing with it in their own way. I have spoken to people who don't want to have the conversations.
Yeah.
It's too painful. It feels as though nothing will change. They don't trust the process. They're not trusting the fact that everybody's talking about it, the fact that everyone's, really, really wanting to support and be an ally.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are the people who are angry and they, just want to talk to you about all the wrongs that have happened in their life. I'm sitting more on the fence of, well, I can't expect my friends to change if we don't have those conversations.
Right.
Am I ready for those conversations at any given moment? No, absolutely
100%.
not. Some days I just think, don't want to talk about this.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about being black because I go to bed and I'm black and I wake up and I'm still black.
Right.
And you don't have to have that conversation, but I'm going to have that conversation all day and every day.
Yeah.
What I think that as a human, nobody can discount or disregard is the fact that if you come from a place of kindness and love and authenticity, rather than just wanting to jump on a bandwagon, wanting to post a hashtag, wanting to fulfill a great, topic that's very now and very current, people will see the authenticity and the genuine desire for either gathering information or making amends or learning or wanting to do better for next time. And I think that, check yourself and see where you're coming from with the questions, with the comments, with the discussion, and then go from there. And if that person is not receptive, that's their prerogative right now. I mean, I could go on and on about this forever, but, it's been a couple of, when is it? June, so July. It's been 2 months.
Yeah, it's still
for a
pretty
lot
new,
of white
right?
people. It's been 400 plus years for black people.
100%.
This is not something that is new to us. It's very traumatic watching people that look like you being killed.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Rodney King, the LA riots.
Yeah.
That was dreadful. How many times have I had to see pictures, pictures of people that look like me that have been murdered, or kids that look like my nephews and nieces, or men that look like my brother or my nephews, and that starts to have an effect on you. You know, when you are taught and brought up by, you know, always make sure that you wear nice clothes and that your shoes are really clean and you speak nicely because, you know, you're already black. You don't want to give them another reason to, you know, that sort of stuff. That doesn't go away in 2 months. Oh, great. We've had a conversation. We're good. We're good now. You know, Jessica, you and I are just rocking it, you know. It doesn't happen like that. So absolutely have those conversations because I think it's worse not to. And I think it very much will.
But be prepared to be told, not right now.
Not right now. Or be prepared to, you know, have an awkward, uncomfortable conversation when people check you on your biases.
Yeah.
And if you're not, maybe it's not the right time.
Yeah. So bringing this back to fitness and sort of the statements that have been made, Les, interestingly, I just wanted to get your take on one thing, just because we've obviously talked about your time at Les Mills. Les Mills made a very strong statement in relation to Black Lives Matter movement that included statements about diversity and cultural appropriation, which which I know reverberated around the industry. I think it was 100% well-intentioned. But I'd be really interested to know, as a Black woman who has been presenting on, you know, multiple Les Mills DVDs and being a trainer and presenter, did you ever feel that there was a diversity problem within Les Mills and within your time there?
No, I'm going to be really, really straight up and say that, you know, I think that in my opinion, Les Mills absolutely 100% always got it right when it came to diversity. And this is, again, speaking from personal experience only. I never felt that I was there as the token Black woman or the token person of color. I very much always felt that I was invited and I was there based on my talents. And never once did I think, oh, okay, that's a bit of a strange comment. You know, and as you said, I think it's a really big, brave step for any company to release a statement like that. It's a very strong statement, and it's, you know, it promises a lot of things. My personal opinion on that is that Les Mills never really needed to worry about things like that, which can cheapen the movement and actually cause a lot of confusion when it comes to, well, what are you saying? Because, you know, people of color appear on your DVDs. You know, you've had people, Asian people, you've had, you know, plenty of women, and it can actually sort of throw in a bit of a, well, I don't get it. What are you trying to say? And are you just jumping on the bandwagon? Or, you know, are you maybe saying that, you know, people will get a shot just because they are
right, which is something that I've seen on some forums now, that with a statement that at least 50% will be people of color and women. There've been some people that are saying, well, now that's not fair in the other direction, which I think is just a whole conversation that doesn't need to be had, because
I just think, you know, and this is my personal opinion. This is just something that I feel after literally watching, you know, VHS onto DVDs, onto, you know, videos. Never have I felt like, oh, this is very white. Never. You know, absolutely never. I mean, the roots of Les Mills come from a very, very strong, you know, Maori culture. You know, it sort of just didn't resonate with me in the way that I think it was intended, although I very much appreciate the fact that the effort was made. However, I believe that you know, those sentiments could have been better spent towards body diversity, which I know that has been a huge problem for a lot of people within the industry of that company.
But not just Les Mills, right? Like the fitness industry as a whole.
Yeah, you know, and I think that would have made a very, very strong statement.
Going back to what we were saying before, do you think that your experience with Body Step 100 would happen the same way today? Would that, not your response to it, but do you think the situation would happen today?
I am so far removed from that company now that I genuinely have no idea. So from that perspective, from that company, I'm going to say yes, purely from the background noise that I've heard about, what that company is still doing, how they're still coming across image-wise, what they're still valuing as an image for their brand and for their company. I'm going to say yes, it would have happened again. In the industry as a whole, no, I don't. And I'm not sure, and I'd love to touch on this a little bit later in a couple of minutes as well. I don't know whether this is because of the people that I've now surrounded myself with and the brands that I've now aligned myself with, whether that shifted my perspective on the way that things are changing in the fitness industry, or whether they really, really are changing in the fitness industry. But no, I don't think that would happen nowadays.
Right. So you've touched on this a little bit. So you've obviously changed your approach to fitness and the people that you're following and the voices that you're listening to. So how has that changed, and who are the voices that you're now using as your kind of leading lights within fitness and just generally?
Yeah, look, I definitely credit this to my starting with CrossFit 5 years ago. And as I said, you walk into a very different environment to the group fitness room, where it was mirrors, literally mirrors on mirrors.
Yep.
And it was very much about what you look like, and and then it moving into a CrossFit type world where it was all about performance, not a mirror to be seen. You got dirty, you cheered for the person finishing last, the loudest for the person finishing last. Everybody could join in no matter what your ability is. And I think that's really flipped it on its head for me then I started to actively look for those type of people within the industry, coaches and facilities and brands as well. People that were actively putting diverse body types, tall, short, bigger thighs, bigger boobs.
Who's really nailing it? If you can you think of any brands that, if our listeners are out there and they're thinking, who should I follow if I want to get a more diverse kind of visual imagery of fitness?
Or clothing wise, or
just generally brands in the fitness industry that you think are doing this really well.
I'm going to be totally biased and say that Lululemon. I do, and of course I've got a lot of the inside knowledge on where they want to go and what they actually genuinely believe in. And I know for years now, if you look at their online or their online stores, it's people of all different colors, and they're definitely starting to go with more inclusive sizing and different body shapes as well. And that's a big deal for them because they were very pigeonholed for a very, very long time.
Right, as the kind of white yummy mummy that goes to yoga.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is literally a size US 2. But, they will admit that, but they've also realized over the last, couple of years that needs to change. And I'm so proud to be associated with a company that is making active steps. I think the other brand that comes to life is Nike.
Yeah, I was in Nike today, and there was the diversity of the mannequins, and there was actually a child's running mannequin with a prosthetic sort of knee and below. And it was just great because it was literally, the mannequins reflected any type of different body shape that you could possibly see on the street in front of you, in that kind of, plastic mannequin mold, but just diversity.
Absolutely. And I think it's very interesting, and it'd be interesting to see how that kind of visual data is reflected in our shopping experience, or in how we actually buy, or even in a couple of years how we view ourselves, by actually being able to even see mannequins that look a lot more like us, or that don't all look the same. But I think the fact that Nike, and they made the news, and the fact that they made this plus size mannequin, and I think that's great. Until that becomes normal, it will make the news.
So when it doesn't make the news is actually when maybe we're somewhere
we've hit the nail on the head. But I think the fact that when you walk around the store, or when you're in a gym, most women don't look like a mannequin. Some do, some are smaller, some are much smaller. you know, some are much bigger, some are much shorter, some are
Yeah.
much taller. And I just think that, you know, it's great to be able to see all of those diverse body types and shapes and everything from two really great leading brands. You know, and then we've also got fitness companies who I think are really getting it right. And, you know, again, it's along the lines of the functional training. And I think the one that really definitely jumps out to me is the Foundry
Right.
here in London.
Okay. Yeah, I completely agree. So for those of you that don't live in London, we can put a little note in the show notes to this so you can kind of get a vibe of what the Foundry is. But I completely agree with you.
Yeah. You know, again, it's so welcoming. You have all different abilities. It's not a fashion parade. It's not a, you know, selfie in the toilets type of vibe. You know, it's very much based on performance, and the coaches really care. You know, the coaches actually really care about their people. And great friend of mine, Laura Hoggins, who is the director now of the Foundry, you know, she is someone that definitely springs to mind about.
Right. We will put a link to her socials as well, because I think if you're a female in the industry who's looking for a role model that isn't all about, that's about kind of how it makes you feel, not about how it makes you look, then she's a great one to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, let's not beat around the bush. The woman looks amazing. But, you know, it's the fact that, you know, she's a best-selling author, and she wrote you know, a book all about lifting and people who might not be comfortable in the weights room and how to get started. And, you know, I just think that that's super inspirational. I just think she's super inspirational, and she's an incredible role model for people, not just women, but for people who just want to move and maybe do something a bit different. And just train to feel great and to move their bodies.
Having been in the fitness industry for how long? 25 years? Was that?
Yes.
Having been in the industry for 25 plus years and kind of been through a roller coaster of different times and emotions, and now coming to where you are now, what's the future of fitness for you? Where is Vanessa Labort as we move forward in 2020 and beyond, having learnt all that we've learnt?
Oh God, I'd love to be able to say, you know, that's it, I'm hanging my boots up, but I don't think that ever happens as an instructor. I think there's always that buzz. And so I'm absolutely loving the work that we're doing together on Shift, obviously. And I have recently been looking into doing some more online type coaching and classes. And so, you know, Shift is the perfect model for that. Can't wait to roll that out on my own terms, you know, obviously, and however many classes I want to do. And I think that'd be
It's one of the great freedoms of moving virtual, right? There are so many instructors I know who are like, they're really sad about the fact that they can't teach in their gym, but they're also not sad about the fact that they can put the washing on, go and teach a class in the lounge, and then spend time with the kids.
and possibly access so many more people that they've never been able to you know, access before. So I think that is definitely a massive reason why I'm thinking, maybe I should pick up the boots again and strap them up. I'm loving, I've recently treated myself to a Peloton bike, and I'm loving the Peloton app and the cycling classes. Love that. Yoga has become a great staple in my workout routine as well. I know we've had this conversation. I did have a think about whether, should I teach that? But I've managed to do that with CrossFit and bar, where I've loved it so much, I've gone and done the teacher training. And so I just think I'll leave this one alone for now. But I just think as an instructor, you can never say never. I think the fire is always there, and the buzz is going to be there.
Which is, I think, a perfect sentiment to finish on. So Vanessa, thank you so much for taking the time to tell us a little bit about your story. I'm excited to see what's to come. And I'm also obviously very excited that I'm going to have you fronting a lot of our Rise workouts. So I've got you back on a step. Teaching people how to do great step classes where you're supposed to be.
It definitely feels right. And thank you so much for having me and allowing me to share a little bit of my story. It's been really great.
Thanks very much.